Senator George Maziarz' decision not to run for another term is good news for my next guest. She was planning to primary him in September, and now she will likely have another opponent. With me now to talk about her campaign and what changes is Gia Arnold. Thank you so much for joining us, Gia. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So you decided actually to challenge George Maziarz before you had any idea, and any of us had any idea, that he would abruptly drop out of the race. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, I have 3 children back at home, and I can tell you that the biggest reason that I'm running for office is because my children are growing up as well as everyone else's children and grandchildren. I think that the future that they're growing up into New York State is not something that I can stand, and it's not something that I want to see my children growing up into. And I felt that the biggest change that I could bring to New York State would be by getting involved politically and running for state office.
So when you decided, though, I mean, people could do that on a whole host of levels. You took a guy in your crosshairs who had been around for decades, a powerful guy in the Niagara County GOP. I mean, you decided to take on a pretty significant and powerful figure before we knew he wasn't going to run. Were you not daunted by that idea?
I was not so much daunted because I think just like many of the other people in New York State, we are all tired and we've all decided that enough is enough, whether it's through the constant ranking of New York State as dead last. But if you look into our district, the 3 counties in the district are constantly ranked dead last in the state, whether it's for property taxes, whether it's for energy costs. We're ranked relatively low for, high for the amount of people leaving the state. And I think that having someone in office for 19 years that has been tied to corruption scandals in the past through election law violations, and then even before, afterwards, after I had announced and decided to run, the Moreland Commission report on him came out, but it almost seems like it's a cycle. And I think that talking to many people, not just in the district, but across the state, we're all tired of it, and we all want to see change in Albany.
You also have been running, if I'm not mistaken, with a big focus on the SAFE Act. It certainly is something that remains controversial upstate. Senator Maziarz, I believe, voted against it. He has been in favor of repeal. So why is it that you hold him responsible for this particular law?
Well, the organization and the political fight that I've been fighting is not so much the SAFE Act. It's more of a constitutional standpoint where we believe that, when a representative is elected, they take that oath of office that's to uphold the United States Constitution. And when you have legislators that either pass or vote yes on legislation that is unconstitutional, but it also goes further to putting up a fight against the message of necessity, I think that George Maziarz could have done more there. And he also failed to vote no on certain budget bills that funded the SAFE Act. And I think when someone's elected as a representative for anything, that the most important thing they're supposed to be doing because of that oath of office is to uphold the United States Constitution. And by allowing our representatives, even the Republican or conservative ones that may vote against something, if they're funding that same thing and not putting up a fight for the budget, I think that that's also a major problem that we have in New York State.
Understood. So now, of course, as of yesterday, this whole race has changed. George Maziarz is no longer running, and we were surprised. I don't know if you were. Perhaps you were not. What was your reaction initially when you heard?
Well, the rumors have been surfacing over in the district since about midweek last week, and of course I don't take any heart to any of the rumors that I had been hearing. So when he announced last night, it was a complete shock because I wasn't expecting someone that's been in office for 19 years. Outside of that, he's made a career of politics, and aside from there, he's been campaigning this entire year, and he's been receiving endorsements and going out and gathering signatures and turning those in. I would say it's a complete shock, but it doesn't surprise me, especially with the Moreland Commission report coming out and more rumors fielding around him, and it almost seems like his empire might be crumbling. And I think that it was almost a plan, the way that it has all kind of gone into play. So last minute in the game, after he's gotten these endorsements, after he's gathered the signatures, and now they're throwing around someone else's name that's going to be picked by his committee of vacancies to replace him on the line. It almost seems like it's this game that he has known about, and I think that the constituents are kind of tricked by that because we were led to believe myself included as a constituent currently, that he was running for office, and now all of a sudden he's come up with this excuse that he's tired of driving to and from Albany, and he's got to focus on his family, which seems a little bit last minute for if you ask me, and almost like he tricked the candidate or the constituents into endorsing and supporting him through this process thus far, and now it's not even going to be him running.
Yeah, this is certainly not the first time that we've seen this sort of thing where a candidate declines a nomination after filing petitions. So, as you mentioned, his or her committee to fill vacancies which is just 3 people, and in this case, 3 local GOP leaders get to hand-pick the individual who then will be on the line. And as you alluded, there's another individual's name, and that person's not you. So did you seek this line? Did you call the county chairs and ask them to consider you? Because my understanding is they're thinking to go with the North Tonawanda mayor.
Yeah, that's what I have heard as well. And originally, when I had first announced back in March, I reached out to all of the committee chairmen through a certified letter, and I introduced myself and asked for the possibility and the opportunity to be interviewed and considered for endorsement. I got one response, and that was from the Orleans County Conservatives, who in turn interviewed me in May and also endorsed me. None of the other committee chairmen ever responded to me, or sent me an email or gave me a phone call, or even a letter that they had already endorsed Maziarz. I happened to run into one of the Republican county chairmen, Ed Morgan, just happened chance in the county, and he apologized for not ever responding to me and just told me, well, just so you know, before you announced, we had endorsed George Maziarz back in February, which is also the same month that I had filed my committee, so they knew that I was out there considering running for state senate. And I can say that this person that they're discussing, the mayor, you only have to wonder, we've got this corrupt politician that's been in office that's currently being investigated. His staff has subpoenas out for them, and now they've got this hand-picked candidate. How much control is George Maziarz have into this, and is this candidate, which I would highly assume that he is going to be, just another George Maziarz, especially being handpicked within a day of him announcing and having the rumors surface last night that he was being considered. Is it just going to be another person under George Maziarz's powerful hand, or is it going to be someone effectively working for the constituents? And I certainly don't see that in the mayor, as he's already been praising George Maziarz's success in the Senate over the past 19 years on his Facebook page.
So from what you are saying, it sounds to me like you have no intention of backing down. You'll run against whoever it is who was put up by the GOP chairman.
Oh, absolutely. My candidacy will not change whether or not they consider an endorsement for me. I have sent out some feelers and some requests, and I've been working on that today and tomorrow to see if they'll give me that opportunity to interview, as they did endorse George Maziarz. They have not endorsed his the person that fills his vacancy, and I think that I deserve that opportunity, having been campaigning the past several months, having gone door to door, and having gathered all the signatures and support that I needed to get onto the ballot. It's only right that they give me that opportunity to be interviewed, to be on the party line and have that endorsement.
It seems at this point things are changing very rapidly in Albany, and the Senate Republicans used to have a fairly strong working relationship with the Democratic governor, Andrew Cuomo, and they had a power-sharing agreement with a renegade Democratic group called the IDC. Now that that's changed, it's possible that the Republicans will lose any semblance of power that they have in the chamber in Albany and be in the minority, which renders them fairly weak. Is that something that bothers you? Would you mind being a member of the minority if it meant that you perhaps could not deliver as much for constituents?
I would not mind that. Obviously, I would rather see the Republicans gain hold of the Senate and hold that control, because I think it's important that if we want to turn the state back into the right direction, we need to get some more conservative-minded, liberty and freedom-minded candidates in office and representing Albany. And not just that, but we need to get rid of a lot of the career politicians that have just been sitting in there too long, and we need to restore the legislature to the citizen statesman that it was meant to be.
So then it sounds to me like including in your platform is also term limits.
Yes, I strongly support term limits, and I have told many people that if I get into office, I don't believe that anyone should serve in any particular seat for more than 8 years, and I would even support limiting to less than that. But I think that to get a majority of people to agree with term limits, we'd need to set it at or around the president's limit of 8 years, and I think that that would be a great start for New York. And I think that it would help curb a lot of the corruption and a lot of the lack of transparency and lack of accountability and the lack of representation, because they're failing to represent us because they've been in office so long, and they end up working for the special interest groups or the lobbyists or the special party interests that are funding their campaigns.
I'm just curious, one of the largest things that we just saw accomplishment-wise at the end of the session was medical marijuana. There was a big push actually coming out of Western New York, and Republicans who voted yes on medical marijuana. Had you been in office, how would you have voted?
I would have voted yes, and I actually, may have gone further. I think that a lot of the limits were set up a little too strongly. Of course, we need to do a lot of research in order to enact anything further, but I would have supported that.
Well, Gia Arnold, I think that we will probably see more of you. You are, just to be clear, a Republican, which means you have filed your petitions, and there's no permission that you need from the party leaders to get onto the ballot. So it looks like there will continue to be a primary. It's just minus George Maziarz in September.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And I do believe that I'm the change that the district is looking for, as I've met so many people even just in the petitioning process in the past month that are very unhappy with the leadership. And I think that they're well aware that even if George Maziarz is out of the race, whoever his committee finds to replace him is going to be, almost equal to the lack of success that he's had in Albany.
Well, I thank you very much. We're keeping an eye on this race, and be well this evening.
Great. Thank you very much.